be done in less than 30 seconds.
Jesus
Okay?
fucking Christ. You're
Goodbye.
perfect.
Yeah. When you blaspheme
These
Christ,
people
you're
are. What's
done.
wrong with these atheists? Yeah, I don't get this. Why don't? Yeah.
Look. When he said he was 20 years old, I thought he was going to say he was 15. What
Exactly.
is it? What is it with so many of these 18, 19, and 20? So when I was that age, I was never that stupid or low class. I mean, so many of them are just low class. But then again, maybe I had the advantage of having the decent parents that I did. Okay.
Exactly. I'm very, very sorry for your parents, to be honest.
My parents?
Their parents. I'm sorry for their parents. Yeah.
Okay. No, I'll just tell you. Maybe I had the advantage. I had both of my parents were very classy, very intelligent, very mature individuals, well educated, right?
Yeah, I think having a mother and father in the home is like really important. Like if young men grow up without a discipline in their life, then they act like this.
Yeah, they act like they're now in adulthood, but they continue to act like sneering, mocking, obnoxious, teenagers at the cafeteria table, as I so routinely say. Welcome, Pubble. Do you accept God as your creator?
I do not. No.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Well, I'm just really trying to get a grip on the whole sort of tag argument.
Okay, sir. So
as a defense for God.
Be quiet.
Sorry, you haven't answered.
If I hear you talking while I'm talking, I will kick you out of the room. You just dodged my question. If you dodge a reasonable question without further warning, you will be kicked with no notice. I asked you a question. Now, I'll repeat the question that you blatantly dodged. When you ignore a reasonable question in an interlocutor, I consider you giving me the middle finger when you do that. Okay? Now, do you have a justification for your God denialism?
Yeah, I just don't see any convincing evidence.
Okay, so God does not exist because you're unconvinced.
That is the reason why I hold my belief, yes.
Okay, how old are you?
23.
Okay, you're almost a quarter of a century old, and you're saying, in order for God to exist, you would have to have a mental state that you accepted as existence? Why would God's existence... Listen carefully. You're nearly a quarter of a century old. Put your thinking cap on. How does it logically and necessarily follow, because you are unpersuaded, which you could be unpersuaded about a proposition for any variety of issues, how does it logically and necessarily follow, because of your unconvinced mental state, that there is no creator?
Oh, it doesn't. What I believe or not.
Okay, stop right there.
Are you going to let me actually answer?
No, I'm going to let you speak, but I just want to briefly interject. You just admitted that your first line of reasoning was irrational.
No, what I was trying to say is that what I believe does not dictate what is truth or not.
Listen, I'm going to cut you off again. When you ignore what I say to you, you're giving me the middle finger, and you start talking on a semi-related path. That's the second time you've done that. If you do that a third time, I'm going to kick you without warning, because you're giving me the middle finger when you do that. I don't have to have you agree with me when you respond, but when you blatantly ignore what I'm presenting to you, either in the form of a question or a statement, where you ignore what I'm saying and you start talking about something semi-related, you're giving the middle finger. So give me the middle finger again by ignoring what I'm presenting to you, and I'm going to kick you without further warning. Do you understand the rules?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you just admitted that what you first stipulated to account for the non-existence of God was irrational. You just admitted to it. You said it does not logically and necessarily follow because you're unconvinced, therefore God doesn't exist. So by definition, that would mean that your opening salvo was irrational in support of God not existing.
May I speak?
Do you agree with that, or do you have a rebuttal?
I would like to propose a rebuttal.
Give it.
Yeah, so the first thing that you asked me wasn't whether or not God was real, it was whether or not I accept God as my Lord, as my creator.
That's not what we were talking about.
Well, that is the question that
Now,
you asked me first, and that's where the conversation went on from.
Did you just admit a minute ago that it does not logically and necessarily follow because you're unconvinced, therefore God doesn't exist?
Yes.
Okay.
My personal beliefs do not dictate what is universally true.
Therefore, it's an irrational statement to conclude God doesn't exist. Because you're unconvinced, it doesn't rationally support the notion that God doesn't exist.
I did not make the claim that God does not exist. I stated that I don't believe that God exists.
Sir, now what you're doing is you are deceitfully trying to misrepresent when you've been caught with your hand in the cookie jar. You're doing what almost every atheist does when I talk with them. You are shape-shifting from first denying the existence of God to now you're not denying God, you're merely unconvinced. I asked you directly, and I take it that English is your first language?
Yes, sir.
Good. I asked you, how is it that God does not exist? And you responded to the question, because I'm unconvinced. I don't see any compelling evidence. You didn't start off by going, I'm not asserting that God doesn't exist. So now what you're doing is you're shape-shifting from God denialism to lacktheism, that you merely lack belief in God. Well, we can get rid of that in 2 seconds. If you refuse to accept and acknowledge the necessity of God, okay, for whatever reason, that constitutes either a direct or an indirect denial. Okay? Now, you're either going to accept that statement as true, that the non-acceptance of the necessity of God constitutes either a direct or an indirect denial, or you're going to give me a rebuttal that it doesn't constitute a direct or an indirect denial. So which is it?
I think I'd be willing to accept.
Okay, so now I don't want to hear you repeat again that you're just in a state of being unconvinced. Explain to me how God does not exist.
I'm just trying to think of an answer that doesn't include my own personal beliefs, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. I can't make any truth claims about the universe or the universal whether or not God exists. I'm
still waiting with bated breath for you to explain to me how you solve the single most important question of human existence. How did you determine that God does not exist?
I believe that at least from what I've seen, there is a natural explanation for pretty much everything, every question that we have. I don't see a necessity for there to be.
Excellent. So God exists because I have an explanation contra naturalism. So I'm using your logic. Because I have an alternate explanation to naturalism, therefore God exists. Do you accept that line of reasoning?
Well, I would have to hear what that explanation is.
No, sir. You just told me because you have an alternate explanation to there being a creator, therefore God does not exist. How does having an alternate explanation, how does it logically and necessarily follow that God doesn't exist? That alternate explanation would have to be an identity statement that functions as the negation for God. What is your alternate explanation that you can show to be true that negates God?
That would be naturalism.
Is naturalism true?
I believe so.
On what basis do you assert that?
I have seen no evidence to show me that it would not be true.
That's an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
Fair enough. It may be an appeal to ignorance, but that is what my beliefs are based on.
Stop. No, it not maybe. It necessarily is the case. You committed an appeal to ignorance fallacy. That naturalism is true because it hasn't been falsified. That's what you were communicating, correct?
Yeah, so that's the basis of my belief on whether or not there is a God.
That's an appeal to ignorance fallacy. That's a completely irrational position. An appeal to ignorance fallacy is a proposition is true because it hasn't been falsified. You just stipulated God doesn't exist because naturalism is true. Naturalism is true because it hasn't been falsified. That is an appeal to ignorance fallacy. Are we clear on that point?
Yes, I just don't understand why that wouldn't be...
Okay, good. So explain to me, since your first defense of naturalism is a fail, and it's an appeal to ignorance fallacy, do you have any other rational grounds to put on the table that naturalism is true in order to be a negator of God?
That miracles don't happen. There doesn't seem to be anything supernatural.
Okay, well, telling me it doesn't seem to be that way is not a logically necessary conclusion. When you say miracles can't happen, based upon what ultimate objective? Listen carefully. In your worldview, okay, and this is not a change of topic, in your model of reality, what is it that is ultimate, ontologically speaking, in the broad scheme of things, that dictates what can and cannot be?
I would say just the laws of the universe.
Okay, so all you're just simply saying is because there are certain fundamental regularities, those regularities can never cease or be superseded. How do you know that?
Just that's the way it seems to be.
No. Telling me it seems to be that way is not a logically necessary argument that that's the case. So because there are certain recurrent regularities that can neither be violated nor superseded, based upon what? And your answer is, well, it seems to be that way. Well, through
observation, that's the way that the universe appears to act.
Okay, so do you understand, is it true in life that everything is exactly as it seems to be?
No, of course not.
Okay, you've now contradicted yourself. So the fact of the matter is, when you say that miracles cannot happen because of laws of nature, are laws of nature absolute within themselves and eternal and cannot be violated or superseded by anything preceding it?
It certainly seems that way, yes.
I didn't ask you what it seems to be. I ask you, can the regularities that you're referring to as laws of nature, is it impossible for them to be violated or superseded by anything?
According to all of our observations, yes, it would be impossible for them to be superseded.
No. Sir, okay, so have you observed everything? Do you know everything?
Of course not.
Good, then you can't say it's impossible then, can you?
Well, we can only draw conclusions based on our observations.
Good. Then that's inductive reasoning. You don't get to logically necessary reasons by induction. So because you have seen a certain number of regularities alongside irregularities, it doesn't follow that they're in what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not going to even try it. That they can't be violated or superseded. Because you haven't seen an instance of that does not mean that they cannot be superseded or violated.
Yeah, so if I do see an instance of them being superseded or violated, my view would obviously change. But until that happens, I see no reason to change the view.
That's begging you the question. Do you understand that? Because you haven't seen any regularity violated or superseded, it doesn't follow from that it cannot be done.
It's impossible, Darth, right?
Or the fact of the matter is that because you or others haven't said. Now we have eyewitness testimony in the form of biblical records of people who wrote down miracle. Listen to me. No, it's not debatable. Do we have the Bible, which are copies of people who gave eyewitness testimony? Now, here's the point: is you choose to dismiss the testimony of those people who said they witnessed miracles. Okay,
I'm just simply willing to accept that there's ongoing debates about this topic.
Why the fuck do you keep on cutting me off? Okay, now here's the bottom line: are the regularities in the world that you call laws, are they absolute, invariant, and eternal? And I don't want to hear it seems to be that way. Are they absolute, invariant, and eternal?
I have no reason to believe otherwise, so yes.
Okay, no, sir. Okay, on what grounds do you assert that they're eternal?
The fact that it very much appears that they are.
No, it doesn't appear that they're eternal. How would it appear that they're eternal?
How would it appear that they're not?
That's a bullshit. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna kick you out of here the next time you give me an evasive response like that. Okay, how does something appear to be eternal? Can you explain that?
Yeah, if it appears to be true at all times through all points.
Well, nobody has observations of that. Do you have inductive observation eternally for other things being eternal?
No.
Okay, good. So what you're doing is you're not explaining then how anything. Could you tell me one thing that presents itself to you that is eternal?
The flow of time, potentially.
Okay,
that's hard to say.
Is time a natured entity?
What do you mean by that? Like, what is a natured entity?
Well, you told me that time appears to you. Is time a natured entity, or is time a human abstract about the relationship between events?
Oh, it's a human description for the fact that one thing happens after another.
Can you answer my question? Is time a natured entity, or is time a human abstract of the relationship between the succession of events in our inductive experience?
So yeah, it's a human abstract, but it describes things that happen in nature.
So good. How does it follow then that there's a succession of events that it persists eternally?
Again, there's no reason to believe otherwise.
No. That's an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
So I guess from your view, is it?
Listen carefully. Do you realize how inept your answers are? But I must give you credit. You're well practiced at giving non sequitur answers. You sit there and say, "Oh, it seems to be that way." That's a no-go. Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to make an absolute truth claim.
Okay. Well. Okay. Then you can't say. Then if you can't make any absolute claims, then you can't say there are no miracles.
I said that there hasn't been miracles. At least none that are provable.
Okay,
at least.
Okay. Well, then. But see, now you're changing your claim. You're changing your claim to there cannot be miracles, nor have there been miracles. To I am unconvinced of there being miracles or having been miracles. Now, which is your
My
position?
original claim was that miracles don't happen.
Good. Based upon what? What absolute would prohibit that?
Well, it wouldn't be an absolute. It's just the fact that there's no evidence to support the fact that miracles have happened.
Dude, this is what is so irritating talking with you. Because either you're an extremely well-practiced, deceitful person, or you're grotesquely inept, okay? Saying that you're unconvinced is not an argument for your position. Now, is there something that is absolute within the grand scheme of things that will prohibit either the violation or the superseding of certain regularities in our experience?
I wouldn't be able to say yes or no to that.
Good. You just screwed yourself. Do you realize that? You've just destroyed your own position of making the absolute statement that there cannot be miracles. Did you notice how you shapeshift from?
I said that again. I said that miracles don't happen. I didn't say that there cannot be miracles.
Listen to me. You did say that a few minutes ago. Now stop lying. You just said a few minutes ago that they can happen. And I ask you, why can't you happen? They happen. And you said laws of nature. Do you remember saying that?
I believe you're combining two different lines of discussions that we had.
This was like embarrassing for him.
You know what the sad thing is that he was repeatedly lying. It's that he's so comfortable and well practiced at being deceptive and evasive. Notice the shape shifting from making an absolute statement to I'm unconvinced. that when we put their feet to the fire for them to rationally support their statements of absoluteness, they then shape-shift, well, I'm unconvinced of the opposing side.
Yeah, that was a good example of a fool repeating their folly, because you gave him a counter argument as to why, like, appealing to ignorance isn't going to work, and he just kept appealing to ignorance over
and over again. He had no embarrassment and he had no shame. This is somebody who is well practiced in being deceptive. Okay, that's why I finally removed him, not because he was disagreeing, because there's no point in continuing the interaction, because he was so routinely deceptive and evasive. Okay, notice this is what they will do. They will make certain statements of absoluteness. Then when we ask them to justify it, the justification upon a careful examination are non sequiturs. It does not follow. And then they change their tune from making the absolute statement that they're simply unconvinced of what they're opposed to. Okay?
Moot Ball is here.
Welcome, Moot.
Moot, are you an atheist, Moot?
Yeah.
He's an
Can
atheist.
you tell me why there's no God? And if you dodge my reasonable questions, you'll be kicked.
Okay. I mean, anybody can make a god up. I can make one right now.
Okay, goodbye. Goodbye.
What?
Goodbye.
Why is
Goodbye.
you didn't give an
Goodbye. Yeah. Did I not just tell him, if you dodge my question, I'm going to kick you?
Exactly.
And what right out of his mouth is a dodge. It was a pretense of answering my question. He could have responded in the following. He could have said, well, God doesn't exist because of X, Y, Z. Or he could have said, oh, I'm not denying God. I'm an agnostic. I'm unconvinced. But then we would have gone through a walkthrough where I show him agnosticism is simply verbal camouflage, hiding his refusal to acknowledge the necessity of God, which constitutes an indirect denial of God. But did I not warn him? You see, this is the nauseating thing about dealing with these people. They are so well practiced and comfortable with giving evasive responses.
That's the
This
issue.
is why it's so difficult dealing with these people, because they're so well accustomed to giving evasive responses. Like, for example, how do you know that the laws of nature are eternal? Well, it seems to be that way. How does it seem to be that certain things that have repeated, that you haven't had an experience, seeing an alteration of that, how does it follow that they have continued in perpetuity forever?
Lord.
You see,
Absolutely.
when he says that the laws of nature seem to be eternal, he is outright lying. It's an outright lie to say that the regularities that you see, because you haven't experienced any clear indications of them being violated, and the word I was looking for earlier was inviolable. I'm still not pronouncing it right. Inviolable. Okay, inviolable. Okay. Okay. It doesn't follow, therefore, that these regularities are absolute, eternal, and invariant. And you see, another thing is this: they are literally shameless in giving non sequiturs.
Yeah, I got the Emir Lakatos quote. This guy's you can look this up. Emir Lakatos. He's a philosophy. I think he's PhD in philosophy of science. I'm pretty sure he's PhD. Well, he says, one can today easily demonstrate that there can be no valid derivation of a law of nature from any finite number of facts. So they don't even have, when he's appealing to a law of nature, there is no law of nature. Where does he get the law of nature?
The law of nature is a mental abstraction inferred from the succession of regularities and not observing an occurrence of invariance.
Can we give me what's this guy's name? Give him one more chance. Mootball.
I would rather not, but this is your stream, so you do as you please. But
no one else is requesting. Why don't we just give him one?
These people, they're just slimy. They're just slimy. They're deceptive. They're proud of being evasive. Yep. They have no shame.
I mean,
so moot. Okay, let's start all over. Let's see if you can respond to me like an adult. Okay, tell me why there's no God.
He hasn't done anything for me. How about that? Is that the answer you're looking for?
And how old are you?
21.
You gave me an answer that a snotty 6-year-old would give.
I mean, I've been up here for a while, and if anybody's snotty, it might be you, Darth.
Don't conflate my assertiveness and my aggressiveness, okay, and my polemics as being snotty. Don't conflate my being confrontational with absolutely stupid atheistic reasoning and confronting them for what they are, stupid. They have no robustness philosophical with me being snotty. Telling me as a 21-year-old man, God does not exist because God hasn't done any magic tricks for me. That's essentially what your position is. That is worse than a childish answer, because at least a child saying something that stupid has an excuse due to their youth and inexperience and intellectual development.
Well,
how does it logically and necessarily follow, because you have claimed not to see divine intervention, therefore God does not exist? How does that logically follow?
I feel like if God exists, he would be here. Whatever happened.
You're not answering the question.
Answer. Yeah, please answer the question.
If you dodge one more time, I'm going to kick you. How does it logically, and if you're 21 years old, you're no longer a teenager, you're a young man. How does it logically and necessarily follow, because you have not personally witnessed some type of providential interdiction in your lifetime, therefore there is no creator? How does that logically follow? Yeah, you know why there's a pause? Because it doesn't follow.
Great point, Lord.
I mean, that was just such spit out of words there. I got to go through them all.
Okay, you're done. You're done.
That's.
You know what? I don't want to toot my own horn, but by the time I was 21, I was trying to read as many extremely highly intelligent books upon Christian theology and the defense of the faith that I could get access to. Okay? I can't imagine that I would say even something so stupid, even in the defense of Christianity. I mean, imagine I said, God exists because I wanted for my birthday my dad to give me a new car, and my dad gave me a new car for my birthday. So I realized God exists. You think they'd accept that?
I think he was trying to articulate like some divine hiddenness argument or something, but he's just like doesn't have a very sophisticated way.
Okay, can you ban Audacity, please, because he's engaging in slander and defamation.
Yeah, if they talk about your family or they give your full name, you can ban them if you want.
No, I want you to ban them. I want you to ban them.
No, but if you block them, it'll block them on my channel. So it's the same
forever.
thing.
Forever?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if they're saying stuff about this is a problem that we're dealing with in culture and society, and it even is closely related to what the inauguration yesterday. Donald Trump delivered a incredible inauguration acceptance speech, and he gave a scathing denunciation of the people sitting behind him, including the vegetable in chief, Joe Biden. It was the best Liberation Day ever.
He gave a scathing denunciation for the evil behavior of them using the government and involving slander and defamation and using lawfare to try to stop democracy. In the same way, not that I'm like Donald Trump, we have these people that are absolutely vile human beings who, because they don't like the content of what I'm saying, they don't like the fact that I'm polemical in debating unbelievers and I expose their absolute incompetence, right? That they want to come up and repeat slanderous and defamatory meaning stuff about my personal life, which is simply not true. They simply don't know what they're talking about. These people are vile.
Are vile, Darth, and they don't have a life, and they're obsessed. They have a derangement syndrome of you, Darth, because you keep on showing them how irrational their worldview is.
Yeah. Anybody who makes vile remarks about my personal life, okay, I'll simply say, really, how would you know that that's true? Okay.
Exactly.
Why the hell did it take so long to designate the cartels as a terrorist organization? It's almost like some administrations are working with the cartels or something. Because
because look, do you understand? Do you understand?
No, I know there's like a conspiracy.
The leftists in this country are losers. They are weak spine, but then they want to start wars where wars shouldn't be started, and they sit there. You know, Joe Biden. Listen to this. When Joe Biden took the oath of office 4 years ago, like Donald Trump took it, he was asked, "Do you swear to uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic?" That includes enforcing our borders and not allowing people to illegally flood the country. Joe Biden did everything he could to facilitate people illegally coming into this country. Joe Biden intended, not that he just for non-interest, he perfectly intended, and that was his purpose, to allow illegal people to come into the country. I mean, Joe Biden deliberately violated his oath of office. And by the way, did you see what Trump said when he was signing the executive orders? That now that the cartels have been classified as terrorist organizations, would he consider using military action against them in Mexico?
You said anything possible or something like that?
Trump very cleverly looks at the person that says, stranger things have happened.
Oh, right. That's what he said. I liked it when the lady goes, when he's signing the bill to make the cartels.
Okay, do me a favor. Here we have another person, Mr. Preppy. All right, I'm going to block him.
You can block them if they're giving your full name, or they're being really nasty about your family. Block them. But if
there's an individual, Darth, called LAIC Fit. Do you see this individual who keeps spamming the chat, Darth?
Yeah, we got him. We got him.
Yeah, they asked him, like, what if Mexico doesn't like you making the cartel organization a terror, or demarcating it like a terrorist?
Too bad.
He goes, oh, well, you can ask Mexico about that. So, it's funny.
You know what? Trump is a very imperfect person, and everyone on the planet is. I did not want Trump to be the president when he became the nominee for the first time, but he literally changed my mind. In spite of his imperfections, I think that he has a good opportunity to become an even greater president than Reagan. Anyway, Master, forgive us we're not trying to ignore you. Do you accept God as your creator?
No, I don't.
Okay. Now, do you realize neutrality toward the existence of God is actually impossible, although people will try to verbalize that they're neutral toward God? One will either accept and acknowledge the necessity of God, or one will refuse to acknowledge and accept the necessity of God, which will constitute either a direct or an indirect denial of God. Okay? Now, my last statement, you will either accept that or you will give me a rebuttal.
Oh, I can accept that.
Good. Thank you. Okay, now, can you please tell me why there's no God?
Because each time you hear about God, it goes above. Before we knew something about the universe, it was God of the heavens, and suddenly
that's a non sequitur. What you just said. You know what a non sequitur is? It doesn't follow that because people have had faulty thinking by which they concluded God, therefore the conclusion that God exists is false. That's a philosophical non sequitur.
Okay.
Good. So tell me why God doesn't exist.
Well, if going for the philosophy aspect doesn't work, how about the Bible says that we are created?
Sir, I didn't ask you about the Bible. I asked you why there's no creator.
Yeah, it comes. The Bible says we are created by God.
Sir,
However,
are you hard of hearing? Are you hard of hearing? Are you hard of hearing?
Darth. Yep.
Science says that.
Answer Darth, please.
Are you hard of hearing? I said at this juncture, we're not talking about the Bible. If you want, we can discuss the Bible shortly. We defend the Bible. We defend the God of the Bible. But right now, we're talking about your position that there is no creator.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to explain to me, instead of attacking the Bible, explain to me why there's no creator.
Because we are coming from other animals. I'm thinking about the
so what?
evolution.
Even if evolution were true, which it's not, and you couldn't possibly defend evolution, but even if that were true, evolution. No, you can't. Trust me. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now. Listen carefully, okay? I'll let you speak uninterrupted momentarily. But without bragging, I am one of very few people that you are going to run into on TikTok. I am one of the best debaters against evolution that you're going to run into on TikTok. So explain to me, how is evolution true?
Evolution is true because we have evidence of evolution going back millions of years.
Yeah, that's just a generalization. What is the evidence that shows a universal common ancestry? I warned you who you're talking to.
Yeah.
What is the evidence of a universal common ancestry?
By the way, Darth, can I interrupt for a second? Pre-sub, there are people who are spamming Darth's family as well in the chat. Casey was saying if you want to mod her so that she can take care of the chat, because people are still spamming Darth's and being vile against Darth's family.
Cassie?
Yeah, Cassie. She can moderate and remove the people who are spamming Darth in the chat. Yeah. Sorry for the interruption, Darth. Go ahead.
My Lynn's in the text chat. The fossil record is an embarrassment to evolution. Paleontologists recognize that. That's why they try to soft pedal the embarrassment of the fossil record by saying it is incomplete. That is the grossest of understatements. The fossil record is well known among paleontologists to exemplify stasis and not transition. The creatures that appear in the fossil record, even from within an evolutionary perspective, they appear abruptly and they disappear abruptly without numerous successive transitional forms. So you have been
yes,
brainwashed.
There are transitional forms.
You're not getting what I just said. The fact that you might attribute to a handful of fossilized remains as a transitional form does not in any way mitigate what I just said about the fossil record overall. The fossil record overall, there are not numerous transitional forms between the tips and the nodes of the alleged exemplars in the phylogenetic tree. Citing creatures such as Archaeopteryx or Tiktaalik does not make for numerous transitional forms between the exemplars and the fossilized remains. Okay, are we clear?
Yeah, sure.
Good. So what is the evidence, other than a storytelling or a generalization, that a universal common ancestry is true?
It lies in what we are, it lies in the where we got our genes from, basically.
You're not giving me evidence. You're giving me a storytelling. All you're simply doing
because
is you
reject any
no,
and all
sir.
evidence.
I'm trying to explain to you. Okay, I don't know how old you are. I'm 63. I've been trying to bone up on evolution for a long time, since I was a kid. Even when I became a Christian. And many of the times when people defend evolution, they don't have any realization that all they're simply repeating is what the late Stephen Jay Gould would say is nice hand. He would say that he calls them just so stories. Giving me a just so story that our genes detail a history of evolution. How does the genome of the animal kingdom necessarily and in a logically discriminatory way indicate a universal common ancestry?
By the fact that we are using our hands like apes, for example.
A similarity in anatomical and even genetic features is not logically discriminatory or exclusive to common descent, but can be the product of a common design. The fact that an explanation for a certain phenomenon may satisfy someone, it doesn't follow from it that it's true. Okay? What if it's the case that you're accused of schmurder, and that the schmurderer's shoe size was the same size as your shoe, and they left behind blood that is the same blood type as yours? Does it follow from that exclusively or necessarily that you are the schmurderer?
Without two evidence.
No, it doesn't. So the fact of the matter, what you're appealing to is no, you're not understanding. You're not focusing on what I said to you. Does the fact that the schmurderer's foot size and blood type is the same as yours, does that make them exclusively yours, and that that shoe size and blood type couldn't be from another explanation? No, it doesn't. So what you're saying is because common descent could give an explanation for common forms. It's called homology. Okay, homology does not demonstrate common descent. Okay, now if common descent were true, then we would probably find homologous structures. But the fact that there are homologous structures doesn't logically discriminate that common descent is true, because homologous you got a hot mic, P. So do you understand that homologous structures is not ipso facto evidence for common descent?
Mm-hmm. And you do realize.
Let me ask you this question: are there homologous structures that are similar in Macintosh laptops, iPads, and iPhones? Are there similar structures in them? But they're all the product of design, yeah. So the fact that there are similarities between forms and animal types isn't logically discriminatory or exclusive to common descent. It may cohere with common descent, but it doesn't show exclusively and to the exclusion of any other explanation for that.
Okay, so that we have the same skin as pigs, but we are standing upright like apes.
None of that shows common descent. Pointing to similarities in either genetic or anatomical forms is not logically discriminatory for common descent. Can these forms be the result of common design?
Yeah.
Okay, so therefore you now lose the evidence that you claim, because you're gonna have to show that common descent is the only possible way to account for these similar forms. Can you do that?
Common descent, as we are apes, and
Sir, apes is just a taxonomic classification. Things can be classified in all different ways. Taxonomy is not it's not how shall we put, ironclad, and it doesn't demonstrate common descent.
yes, it does.
Okay, so, no, sir. Do you understand? You're confusing taxonomy, which is classing certain creatures with similar characteristics in certain groups. That's what taxonomy is. You're confusing taxonomy with, let's say, cladistics. Okay, cladistics is an attempt, and I emphasize the word attempt, to come up with a extrapolative or conjectured phylogeny. Okay, meaning an alleged family tree of descent. So taxonomy is not the same thing as a phylogeny, and even phylogenies are suspect because they would have to show necessarily that there's common descent. Right?
Yeah,
so a phylogeny, which is a conceptual or pictorial or a type of chart that alleges family descent, it may or may not be true. So the point is this: so far, you have not brought anything to the table to show in a logically discriminatory way that common descent is true.
Then how do you explain that when they go through our records, they measured everything from the skull to down to the feet, just to see if there is similarity.
Sir, I feel sorry
Homo
for you.
erectus.
Sir,
we're in fact called Homo sapiens sapiens.
Listen to Darth.
I feel sorry for you, and the reason why I feel sorry for you is because of your lack of investigation and research, and because of your confirmation bias. It has nothing to do with your intelligence. I don't consider you in the least bit lacking intelligence or even basic education. But because you haven't taken the effort to ruthlessly examine the so-called lines of reasoning opposed to arguments against it, you have an incapacity, not because you're not intelligent, but you nonetheless have an incapacity to differentiate facts from conjecture. Many of the classification types, okay, of these Latin-sounding phrases are highly conjectural. Okay, the fossilized evidence for common descent is at best extremely weak and highly conjectural. It does not. See, what happens is you have people that are Kool-Aid drinkers. I don't know if you're familiar with that term from your country, but people who have totally embraced the dogma of evolution. And many times they will, let me illustrate it for you. Have you ever seen a graphical or a pictorial representation of the geological column?
Geological column.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of all the different ages that they've gone through? You've got the Mesozoic, the Jurassic.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Okay,
yes.
that is a nomenclature or labeled depiction of the geological column of ages. Now, do you know that the geological column does not exist anywhere on this planet? Did you know that? Now,
in what way?
I'm asking you, really simple. Is the geological column, as it is depicted in graphical and verbal representation, does it exist in any one place? The answer is no, it doesn't. The geological column is a thought experiment attempting to combine various sedimentary layers around the world that have striking similarities, and then in a thought experiment, combine them into a model as though it was extant, which it is not. This is the same thing is true when we come to certain fossilized remains of humans. Now, did you know, how old are you, Master?
Old as you.
You're in your 60s?
No, sorry. 36. I thought you said you were
okay.
30,
Now,
36.
before you were born, when I was a child, and I would read textbooks about Neanderthals, they were completely depicted in an almost completely subhuman form, barely human. Today, amongst the technical writings about people that are theorizing about Neanderthals, they are depicted almost indistinguishable from modern humans.
Yeah, that's
well, okay, right. So here's the problem.
That's science getting.
Okay. Were they wrong in that thought experiment?
They were wrong earlier.
Good.
So they learn.
Can they be? That's right. So their thought experiments that are popular today could turn out to be wrong in the future. You're not dealing with scientific facts. What you're dealing with are certain items of sense datum. For example, do you know that there are skulls of people today, they're alive today, that if you were to examine their skull in an X-ray machine or in a what do they call it? Not the CAT scan, an MRI unit, they would have very prominent brow regions and features like certain skulls that we find. You see, the fossilized remains, there are very few of these bones to begin with, and they're typically almost always clearly either human or not human. So the fact of the matter is, when it comes to these fossils, this is not unequivocally clear evidence of evolutionary descent for humans. You see, this is why it's such a delusion, because people are brainwashed into it, and they think that all that glitters is gold. If a scientist says, "Oh, well, these bones indicate common descent," really, based upon what?
Based upon DNA that may be found in. Based upon.
Do you know that most of these bones?
Skeleton. They don't.
Do you understand that a lot of these bones? Do you know that a lot of these bones? Do you understand that a lot of these bones don't have DNA in it that to be used, or it's degraded? Now we can find.
That's why
we
full
can
skeletons
find that
are digged up are the most
you know what? I'm wasting my time because you're one of these people. You have been brainwashed to believe in evolution. You believe because evolution is so pervasive throughout the world, and it comes in the holy name of science. Therefore, it's a fact. It's not a fact. Do you know that if you actually study evolution, okay, look, for example, I'll give you a quotation from one of the greatest evolutionary minds of the last century. His name is Theodosius Dobansky.
Mm-hmm.
And his statement about this, and he was a dyed-in-the-wool evolutionist. He says there's no way to test the past. Does science involve observation, testing, repeatability with predicted success?
Yes.
Good. How do you test the past?
You test the now.
No, you can't test the past, can you?
There is carbon.
Well, hold on a second. If I take you through the Grand Canyon, and I tell you that all these sedimentary layers are evidence of millions of years of deposition, is that the only possible answer?
Well, yeah, plate tectonics.
No, we're not talking about plate tectonics right now. We're talking about the Grand Canyon and the sedimentary layers.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, the fact that long periods of time could have or may have laid down these sedimentary deposits, it doesn't logically and necessarily follow that happened. Could these
Because we
sedimentary
know a big ice sheet created them.
Listen to, all right, I'm done with you. Okay.
Waste of time, Darth.
This is the problem, all right? Not only are people brainwashed into all this evolutionary and deep time propaganda, right? But they really, because of their own confirmation bias, have no interest or are unwilling to examine the robust counter arguments. And the reason why is because they're in an extreme minority. They think they stupidly think that because something is held in vast consensus pervasively throughout the world, and it's glorified as science, therefore it can't be wrong. In other words, they don't want to bring themselves to believe that all of these scientists who accept evolution in deep time could be wrong. This is the same mentality that Muslims have when it comes to their nationalistic and ancestral and cultural descent from Islam. That's the same type of groupthink. That all these people
evolution
be wrong.
is not a scientific fact, right? Evolution is not a scientific fact at all.
Well, let me answer this. Is it a fact? No. Is it promulgated as a fact by many of those who have accepted the dogma of deep time and evolution? Yeah, it's promoted as a fact to students, but it is not. It is not a fact. And when you actually go and study it in greater depth, other than your average person indoctrination, what you have been told are a plethora of facts are not a plethora of facts, but are just simply dogmatically held pervasive views in consensus. Right? There are so many errors and misstatements of facts within the promulgation of evolution, it isn't even funny. But you see, here's the problem. The reason why all of these errors are overlooked is for several reasons. One, the alternative is absolutely objectionable to those people, and that alternative is special creation. Okay? Another reason is why try to overthrow or investigate against the consensus? Well, if you actually study evolution and investigate it, there are some minority voices that are strong critics of evolutionary theory, even within the ranks of non-creationists. Like, for example, Thomas Nagel, very famous philosopher, brilliant man. He's an atheist. He wrote a book, okay, I'm trying to remember what the title of it is, where he says the theory of evolution is almost certainly false. Okay? Now, does that make him right and the evolutionist wrong? No. But there are other voices there too. The idea that the fossil record is overwhelming support of common descent is a complete falsehood. The fossil record is an embarrassment to the notion of common descent. This is a fact within paleontology, but that fact in paleontology is not taught to people until you get to either undergraduate or graduate studies. Okay? When you ask people, what is the number one reason for believing in evolution, they will almost always say the fossils. And they don't realize they've been misled. A secondary reason they'll say is genetics. But the genetic evidence is just simply extrapolative. And it's not logically discriminatory for universal common descent, because the genetic similarities, both anatomical and genomic, can be explained by design. But because design is considered off the table, it's relegated to non-science, that the idea that the genomic or anatomical similarities or homologies there are therefore indicative of common descent because it's the only game in town. They think of it as though it's logically discriminatory for common descent when it's not.